We are a little bit past 5:30. I'll call this meeting to order. Karen, can we have a roll call, please?
Leif Erickson.
Here.
Mark Finneman.
Here.
Blake Roberts.
Here.
Judy Huntash.
Here.
Sam Husnick.
Here.
Jenny Lorge. And President Bain.
Here. And ask everybody that's able to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Members of the EDA, we have an agenda before you. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And agenda is approved. The first item of business this evening is the approval of the February 10th meeting minutes. Those are before you. I will entertain a motion to approve or any changes.
I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes of the last meeting, which took place on February 10th.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? One-
Abstain.
2 abstentions. And we have a majority to approve. Karen, before I forget, we have dropped off of this agenda, the approve agenda step.
I
Can we
see
add
that.
that for next time? I meant to mention it last meeting and forgot.
I'm not sure how that happened, but I do see it.
It's all right. Next item on our agenda is a Convention Visitors Bureau presentation. I think Nanette from the Chamber is going to walk us through.
Actually, it's a very brief summary of what we've been doing, but thank you, Mayor Bain and members of the EDA. Dan did ask me just to give an update as to just preliminarily where we are from the Forest Lake Chamber standpoint for the CVB or DMO, which is the Tourism Bureau, to serve the visitors to the Forest Lake and surrounding lake area. Since the EDA workshop priorities review sessions that we had earlier in the year, I have formed a committee specifically for the purpose of the DMO. Several of this team met with city staff to get clarification just on the time frame regarding implementation and the collection of occupancy tax, how long we could do that prior to actually putting it forth into some sort of an expenditure. And we are currently in the process of reviewing the past research and then the proposal that was formed by the committee in the past. And then we're also reaching out to the areas of Columbus, Wyoming, Chisago, and Lindstrom at a minimum to assess their interest in the regional level tourism bureau. So again, not just Forest Lake, but the surrounding areas as well. And that is where we're at.
Excellent. This is a topic that gets brought up occasionally, and occasionally we field questions from the public or interested parties. Do you have a timeline for next steps or thoughts on when something might be coming back? Or?
We're hoping, again, with the expo in full force now over the next couple of weeks, we've been reaching out for the contacts or looking for those contacts in those specific areas and starting to have meetings with those. I would hope by June, but I'm really hoping to be much faster than that. So again, pulled all the information together, really looking at April and May being a good time for us to really dig into all the nuts and bolts of what this would look like for you.
And I can imagine some of that timeline is going to be dictated by the level of interest with surrounding communities as well.
And
The
how soon you can
larger
get-
it is, the
yeah.
more coordination. Perfect. Okay. Any questions from Nanette? Thank you. Great update, and keep us posted. And if there's things that the EDA can do, and certainly you have access to staff as well to keep things moving. Very good. Next item on our agenda is an update on CBRE in the first quarter report.
Yep, in your packet, I believe Dan's memos, and kind of give you some of the information. I'll go over that. But also there's the sales, or the brochures that go along with the site that was included, the Headwaters, I guess you call it the advertising stuff is in your packet. So that's what they're sending out. That's what they're approaching the public with. But according to Dan from, Dan from Headwaters, They've been successful with starting to market this. They've sent out a couple of email blasts on the 14th and the 25th, which have gotten a 21 and 24% opening, which means they've actually opened an email, which is really a pretty good response for an email blast that didn't get placed into spam or just immediately deleted by whoever got those. And they also listed on CoStar, which is a national audience, and you can see by the report that different places from across the country, Tennessee, California, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Florida, et cetera, have been looking at this site, which means we hope that's some good interest from some of the technology companies and some possible data companies that we're interested in. The local MinCar site, we have 47 different brokers that have looked just at this site, probably gather more information. No real bites on this site yet as far as offers. So we're waiting to see if somebody's really interested. The one thing we have done, and one we've been included in, Greater MSP asked us to submit basically a pro forma, an outline of the site and what was ready. They have a national player, we don't know, advanced manufacturing and technology company that's interested in locating somewhere in the greater Minneapolis area. So we gathered a bunch of information with CBRE, Dan, ourselves, and sent it along to Greater MSP. What MSP will be doing is submitting 4 sites to whoever this company is. We don't know who it is, we don't know what they do exactly. We're hoping to make that cut of the final 4, being March, it's kind of appropriate, but, and then, and possibly maybe make the choice. We have a strong position now with all the work we've done with the studies and things like that. We now have a pretty good summary of, where the power is, where the internet, where the fiber optics are, how close it is to the airport, all that. We've laid that all out. So I think we have a good chance to qualify. It's really just depending on what the manufacturer is. They're looking for an 80-acre site, which would be good. And hopefully we'll get in the final 4 and maybe actually come up with something this time. So, but that's all in MSP's hands. It's kind of out of our control. We've presented the best knowledge and best information that we could. We'll see what happens. So,
Fingers crossed.
so that's good news.
Nice to have some good activity. Any questions on the quarterly report? And I'm assuming, unless there's other activity to report sooner, and hopefully that's the case, but this is a report that Dan expects to send quarterly? Is that-
Absolutely, that's
Perfect.
part of the agreement we have with him, that he'll update us on a quarterly basis on what kind of activity, what kind of information he's putting out there, what contacts he's made, who they may be, if he can divulge them. Not always, they can't always divulge them, but
Can I ask a question? Just so I get better bearings on what the competitive marketplace is out there, and the range of that marketplace. We're within our own tech corridor.
yes.
We have competing cities and competing properties.
Mhm.
We're within the metro area extended. How far does it go beyond that into the Midwest or elsewhere, where we're really in competition with someone from Wisconsin, Iowa, what have you?
The term data center has been bandied around about a lot. There is a widespread competition for data centers. Iowa actually is a pretty big data center location for that. In this case, with the Greater MSP, it's not really a data center, it's a manufacturing and a high-tech kind of thing, so I don't know what the competition is there. Obviously, if they've got an inquiry at Greater MSP that the company, whether it's an in-state or outside of state company, is looking to move here for whatever reason, same things that we are trying to offer, which is the close to an interstate, close to an airport, close to high-speed fiber, and enough land to build on. They'll look for that any place they can get, and for the best price and the best location, depending on their workforce. We do have an advantage that we have we're still close to the cities. We also have our own pretty solid workforce. Lately, that's what companies are looking for the most, because as you read in the newspaper, often it's hard to get qualified people. There are more jobs than there are more trained people. So that's a big consideration as well. So Just depends on what they're looking for in the market, but I think we're competitive in this area. I think we offer a lot to any business that wants to come in and locate here, so.
So our marketers, they're pretty specific, that group was pretty specific toward data centers.
Well,
Is that just a broad
they're
term
not,
as well?
that was what we started, but if they are more, if they get an offer from someone else, they have, obviously they have to bring it to us. The nice thing about CBRE as opposed to a local firm is that they've got many different people in their office that do different placements of different businesses, which they share in between each other. So if, and this is a good example, let's just say this manufacturing company came to CBRE and we're not going to say, oh, no, never mind, we don't want to, we want a data center. Well, no, if there's an opportunity that comes across CBRE's desk, we will, he's been instructed and we've agreed that we will look at it and, you know, decide if that's something that should go there. And if there's a good offer and a good use for it and it fits well. So we haven't closed the door to anything at all, so.
Okay, thanks.
It's nice to see the activity, finally,
Yeah.
Yeah, it
for
is.
sure.
It's good. Any other questions? All right, on a somewhat related topic, we have a discussion related to an opportunity for some financial modeling. Patrick, are you also
Yeah,
walking us through this?
I will get through this as best I can. So obviously we've talked about data center, and this is really the next step on trying to basically narrow down a company's ability to understand what they would be getting when they come here. So if I was a company VP or somebody as a president looking for a location, you want as much information as you possibly can. We've talked about that before, what the electrical rates are, sewer and water rates, land costs, operating costs, and so forth. So what this will do through the technology corridor, it's a proposal that will try to narrow that down. So what they identify are all the operational and capital costs associated with building something, whether it's a data center, whether it's a technology building. And in this case, it's a data center examples that they give, and that's where we'll focus. But it really tries to get them to pinpoint based on the location that they pick. And I think the concept is we'll pick 2 locations out of the technology corridor, and I think ours will be one of them, and the other one will probably be in Anoka County somewhere, would be my guess. Pick 2 and do the full final scrubbing of all the information that we need. So like I said before, we have the wetland delineations. We've had the electric company come in and say, okay, here's how much power is available, here what we can do. We've had the fiber people come in and tell us we have plenty of fiber. So that broad information is there, but what this is trying to identify is operating and capital costs. So if I come in and said, well, here's how much it's going to cost you to build a building based on X, Y, and Z. So in the case of a data center, how many servers are you going to have in place? What type of servers are there going to be? How many gigabytes of storage do you need? Then what's the annual operating cost to support all of that? So what this study will do is try to get all those factors together, and they give some really good examples here in their models that they've sent on what they're actually looking for. And if you read through them, it shows exactly what one-time costs are, IT operating costs, electric costs, what the tax benefits ends up to be. So if you haven't read those, if you read these 3, or I think there's 3 examples, it'll lay out the entire kind of picture of what they're going to be looking at and what they're going to report on. So it's a real good indicator of what the end product will be. We don't have a cost on what this is going to be yet. We're still working with the technology corridor to determine what that cost be, what the proposal will be, and how that might be split up if we are the ones that they're going to study. But we will come back with that once the analysis, or I should say the scope of the project is determined, and they can give us a price. So I think it's a valuable tool. I think it will, again, narrow the focus and be able to have, I almost said Salem, sorry, I had to stop myself there for a second. Forest Lake will allow us to give somebody almost a fully complete picture of what it'll cost to come in and operate on that piece of property.
A study like that, when I read it, I was thinking data center. So
Yeah.
I'd like to think it's also maybe a generic tech company, or is it not? Will it be very specific?
Yeah, I think that while the focus is on data centers, a tech company is not going to be that different as far as what they need. You may have to shift that a little bit or do some, you may have more employees or you may have different kinds of expenses, but we should be able to shift that. And I'll ask that of the group about, well, what if it's not a data center? What if it's more of a technology-based company? They should be able to do the same thing. They should be able to say how many employees you're going to have, what your product is it a production facility, what's your cost of production, and all of that. They should be able to, we will talk with them about how they might do that in case it is just a technology company or a manufacturing high-tech, a company which may hopefully happen here.
Because I could see a data center being unique and different from most high-tech companies in terms of everything from employees, like you mentioned.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll ask them that question. It's a good question. It's something we should look at because, again, we don't want to close the door to anything but a data center, so.
When do you expect to have some numbers?
Well, this is a recent proposal. We haven't put this out yet, and they haven't finished the scope of work, so I would say within the next 30 days, we'll probably have some numbers based on my discussions with Dan and this group, so.
When I was talking with Patrick and Dan about this particular project, I wanted to get it in front of the EDA to just gauge level of interest, because if you look on Dan's memo, bear with me for a second. Look at Dan's memo, page 6 of your packet, and you talk about the different studies and the investments that have gone into the Headwaters 123 parcel already. Those 3 different phases of investment have all been very general application and just would fit any business that would be going in or any development that would be going in, so it's a broad kind of asset for that overall property. This is the first time where we've done something that's more specific, that would be more sector specific, and not, if general manufacturing, depending on type of manufacturing, that particular asset may not be as applicable. And so just, I see this as kind of narrowing in scope of focus, and before we were to spend some resources on something as specific, I just want to do a gut check with this group and see if that is kind of where we should be placing our investment dollars. Personally, I would encourage us to at least get a quote and evaluate what that looks like, especially if we've got an opportunity to partner with the technology corridor, just to see what that cost sharing looks like. But again, I wanted to get it in front of all of you just as a gut check, because it is getting very sector specific at this point.
How would this modeling be used in the marketing? Is this something that CBRE would be leveraging, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think so. I think both CBRE, but also the technology corridor, and if we have another inquiry from greater MSP, we would use this data, this report, whatever it comes out, to say, here's what we believe the cost would be. And I think no matter what the company was, they could translate that to their business type. So yeah, and in all areas, we'll try to use it. I think it's good, like I said earlier, any person trying to locate anywhere wants as much data and what the costs are going to be and what the long-term operational focus is and how much that might be. So yeah.
I think having that study on the shelf speeds up somebody's decision timeline, and it's another kind of barrier to investment that we've taken off the table. But again, it may not be as applicable to another land use or even another business sector.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable tool. There's no doubt it'll be a good thing to show people.
It also is, I think one of the reasons why we got into the Minnesota Technology Corridor is for opportunities to partner on these types of projects. And so here's an opportunity for cost sharing between our site and a site in Anoka County. There's some good information there. But again, wanted to get some feedback from this group before having staff bring back a full statement of work and a full estimate.
Well, it seems worthwhile certainly to get a quote of their services and to see if you can't have that conversation about how generic and or specific it is.
Yep.
Any other questions or pieces of information you would like to see coming back in that proposal, given it's still a work in progress?
Do you think they're going to they select 2 sites to focus on, correct?
I believe that's what the proposal will be, yes. And I think the reason, not to be overconfident in any way, shape, or form, but we've done a lot of, we've done a lot of work with the Headwaters 123 that I think we're ahead of a lot of others in some of the work we've done with the electric company, with the fibers and all the, even the wetlands and environmental. I think we're that far ahead that we should be pretty competitive to make those 2 studies. It makes a lot of sense. And I think that being that the technology corridor basically is Anoka and Washington County, I think they're just going to pick one of each, and I'm pretty confident that might be us.
Is there any sense of where that Anoka County site would be, or no knowledge?
I am
about
not
that?
familiar enough to know where that site is now.
It'd be probably right down the freeway.
Oh, it'll be off the freeway somewhere,
But
yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think the site they're talking about, it'd be just a little bit north of Centerville. Back in that area. I know that's been tossed around a couple times. Well, both sides of the freeway there, I think, are open,
Yeah.
as I recall.
Right. Any other questions or clarification?
This is somewhat, not related to the site, but any additional feedback or reaching out from the developer that was interested in land since that last back and forth at all? That kind of calmed down a little bit?
Well, he did make 2 offers on the property. Both were, the city council decided to keep the property together for a while yet. And I actually just spoke to that developer today. And we're going to meet sometime next week with Ryan and myself and see what he's got up and ready to go now, and if there's some changes or what he's going to do. So, but right now the 123 stays the 123 until we get further down the road on where we're going with some of this information.
So he's still under consideration? He's not just been put off?
No, right now, there is no consideration to sell any part of the Headwaters 123 to that developer or any other developer. The city council made that decision a few weeks back. That doesn't mean that 6 months from now that might change. It just depends on where we go with this, and I think the long-term outlook was to try to keep that together for now, with hope that we could get a higher land use on that property, a higher value land use as manufacturing or something, and not so much service dependent as residentials are.
Quick point of clarification, you said that developer or any other developer was residential developer was the.
Residential
was
developer,
the
yes, I'm
feedback
sorry.
from council
Yes.
was
Correct,
current preference to maintain for commercial development
correct.
for the time being.
As far as I'm concerned, there was some compelling reasons to hold off for a while. So, during the discussion, that's all I can tell you. Especially when we all had a chance to, well, not directly, but I guess we did, talk to the lister, or whatever you want to call these, the real estate folks. So there were some compelling reasons not to move ahead with that.
Well, I can see that, and I don't think they'll necessarily disappear as a housing potential in the future, even though they're not considered now, so.
They won't go away.
No, the listing, the broker was very strong in saying, just let's leave it as one piece for now. It's the most attractive, you've done the most work, you've got the most report. It makes sense, you've done all this work to just leave it as one piece. Again, as markets change and as, we own this land for longer and longer and longer, that may change. We have to reevaluate as we go forward, but right now, the council agreed that we should just leave it as a whole and continue down the road with these studies and possible development as a commercial or industrial site.
Is there, as far as communication on that and I know that closed meetings and all that, is there some way that the EDA can be somewhat kept up to speed on that? I mean, obviously not the details, but the fact that there was another offer and that a conversation was had about that, just.
We could tell you there's offers, yeah, I can't disclose what was in closed session, obviously, but yeah, we can communicate that when that comes, but, and right now, like I said, we're gonna meet with him next week and see what his new development plan is going to be. And, you know, like I said to him on the phone, he's a developer, it's his own land, we treat him like any other developer. The only difference in the last time was that he was wanting some of the city's land, so that made it different, but if he's got his own land or option to purchase land, he's just like anybody else. We'll treat him the same.
I think the question Blake brings to the table is, you know, if there's commercial offers, and I think there's opportunity as commercial offers come forward, certainly as it relates to this listing, just like we saw at EDA input as we hired the listing agent. I think there is an opportunity for some additional interaction, especially as that kind of development picture starts to further develop and we start to see what options look like. So.
I do think, I seem to hear about what happens in the city from the city in general.
Yeah.
I don't hear about it, and maybe that's my fault. I'm supposed to go to planning and city council and be sure I'm up to date on everything so that I can see who's moving around. But there's lots that we never hear about as an actual statement here in the EDA. And so those movements that have taken place, I guess I'm lucky to have heard about them. Many I'm sure I haven't heard about. But is it up to us to go then to various planning and the rest and try and figure out what's going on? Because at some point it's public. We just have to be told about it.
So I'm open to feedback on how we can improve communication on those different activities. You know, in this particular instance, it's a bit unique because we're not, generally in EDA activity is, you know, EDA, we're not the seller, and in this particular case, it's, you know, city council is the selling body, and that makes it a bit awkward for this particular transaction, but certainly, whatever we can do to, you know, improve those communications. I find myself in a similar situation at times. Someone will say, what's popping up somewhere, and unless a building permit's been pulled, many times, you know.
I understand this particular case, but I'm curious about in general, just, I'm playing catch up all the time, hearing who's just moved where and what's done. So maybe that's just us paying attention to what planning commission does, because I think it's a finite, it's a permit, it's a public story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point. I think we can work on trying to figure out what a good communication tool is, whether it's out of planning or council, again, without violating any, you know, there'll be times where we're closed session, or there'll be times when we have a developer walk in and we're trying to negotiate terms that we can't really say anything about, but I think that's valid, and we'll probably talk about that internally, what a better way is to communicate. And, you know, we have the same thing out of the planning commission, says similar things, so it's a matter of what the right vehicle is for that. So.
Something that gives us a sense of what's moving, who's knocking on the door, that kind of thing, because it helps an EDA, I would imagine, better understand what.
Yeah, and you always can't tell you what's knocking on the door, because
I
they tell,
understand that
you know,
part.
so just beware. We're not, I mean, not we're trying to hide anything, but there's some, often there's, when a developer walks in, particularly commercial industrial, they don't want to be telling everybody that they may be looking at this piece of land, because, you know, obviously that's when the prices go up, or it's only a very preliminary inquiry, so. But we'll talk about that internally, what a better way is to do that.
Thank you.
At one point, there was time, you know, Ryan would have some time on the agenda just to kind of update us on different projects. And then, it wasn't all that long ago, Donovan Hart was a regular attendee of these meetings, and I get, obviously there was a decision not to, or is that on his own?
Yeah, since I've been here, he hasn't been at one, so I don't,
It's been a while.
and nor has Ryan's report been on, so I don't know what.
I have stuff written, but it's a lot smaller than you guys think. So, other than what's already been approved in construction. Right now, we basically have two separate areas of new residential subdivision that are exploring a phase 2 and a first phase of several. And your Headwaters 12th that was already approved, that's waiting for construction to start. That's your residential market right now, other than Headwaters 3rd that finished and is starting building permits. you have various site redevelopment projects in town, but they haven't really submitted enough to talk about, because they're processing whether that site makes sense or not, or what requirements are part of that site. So, kind of, I mean, everything that's happened is happening right now, so, but other than the site redevelopment, that basically 2 areas of the city are exploring a phase 2 and a brand new area, multiple phases. But nothing's even been submitted to planning commission yet, so.
No, what I'm hearing is wanting to hear more updates on pipeline status or what else might be coming.
The big things from
And-
transportation are Highway 8, 2023, that's being led by Chisago County. Primarily, the biggest footprint is gonna happen through Wyoming, and it'll go up to Carmel Avenue in Chisago City. 2024, MnDOT's exploring a reconstruction project on Highway 97 between I-35 and Trunk Highway 61 that has potentially a trail on the south side of the highway. Washington County has gone through the RFP consultant selection process for County State Aid Highway 33, which is Everton Avenue from Broadway down to County State Aid Highway 32 or 11th Avenue for 2023 construction. 2025 will be County State Aid Highway 32, which is 11th Avenue from 61 back to Everton. So those are the big transportation projects, and upon those being delivered, you'll see something spark. Just like stuff sparking over in Columbus at the interchange now, after that Virgin Diamond footprint's been laid out.
Has there ever been, anticipating the downtown committee and business people starting to talk and get information together, is there anything active right now with the watersheds and the imposition they have on downtown? Is it just holding where it's at?
No, we've actually asked the watershed to fund a study for stormwater for the downtown area. I don't know if they've voted on that or have considered that yet. With the thought that we should know what's going on there, that we should come up with some solutions, possibly be creative, and because we know and have communicated that to the watershed, that we believe that some of the barriers to development are the fees that the watershed imposes, and not that they're not right to impose those guidelines, but maybe there's other ways to manage the water and to divert it or to put it somewhere else where we can relieve any future development downtown of some of those costs. But we haven't heard back from them on whether they will fund that study or not. So.
And for the downtown kickoff committee meeting is next Monday. And I believe Mr. Nundum has asked the watershed to be a stakeholder, a part of that.
That's correct.
Yep. So great conversation. Good also segue into our next agenda item, which is an update on the downtown committee kickoff meeting, which because of spring break schedules and some calendaring items and wanting to get as many people there as possible, that is actually next Monday. Although future meetings will be that fourth Monday of the month.
Correct.
At the regular EDA schedule meeting, so our second EDA meeting of the month will be those downtown committee groups. Patrick, you want to just walk us through the outline of plan for that session on Monday?
Yep, hold on. Maybe I don't have the outline here. Hold on a second. It's the outline. Yeah.
While you're pulling that up, maybe just a little bit of background and reminder to this group. We had decided that as a group that the EDA was going to be the sponsoring body. And so we have invited the EDA. We have invited full city council, representatives from Parks, Lakes and Trails, representative from the Planning Commission, as many downtown stakeholders. We had solicited actually individual nominations from this group, and then downtown stakeholders, downtown businesses, other organizations in the city, think Lions Club, Rotary, really as, the goal was to make the invite list as big as possible for this first meeting. Introduce the concept, introduce what we are trying to achieve, a rough timeline, and so that individuals can opt in and opt out, recognizing that not everyone is going to want to be part of every single part. Some might want to, but generally that won't be the wish. And so giving an overview so that individuals, again, can decide when they want to plug in and have the right communication to be involved in the pieces that they care about. So that was kind of the overall goal in getting that invitation out. So as you all have received invitations, certainly if there's folks that you are interacting with that haven't received, feel free to extend that invitation. I've done it a couple of times already today. And certainly the more the merrier for this first session. We, again, expect it to be more informational. And then the work products coming out of that to be kind of broken down into smaller segments.
You're correct. I don't have I thought it was on the packet. I do not have the outline. So pretty much what you said there, yes. It'll be an introduction meeting. We'll try to develop the tenor of the group and focus them on what the goals and objectives are and move forward with the ultimate goal of basically, after we get through with that, hiring a planner for some kind of a study or at least a visioning process that they'll run, and however long it takes, get to a point where we say this is what downtown should look like. And then the important part of all that, I mean, one of the things you do is you plan and you have vision and you have all the nice graphics and all that, and you have, here's what we want it to be. But what really important at the end of the day is, okay, so here's what we want it to be. Then we have to put the implementation steps. How do we get there? Often when you have these plans, the implementation steps aren't there. They say, oh, here's the plan for downtown. Well, we need to say, here's the plan for downtown. Here's the steps we take, and go through those steps as whether it takes, it'll take years to go through those steps, so we have to start. So I think that's, in my opinion, that's the most important. It's not so much, we know the vision will come, we know all the information will be there, but then it's how do we implement it? How are we going to afford to help people come downtown? How are we going to put infrastructure in if that's what we need? What kind of subsidies for developers if that's what we need? So it's really the implementation steps that are going to come out at the very end there. That's really the important part of that process.
Two quick things I would add on to that. One would be, let's be respectful that on one hand, this is a kickoff because we are kicking off a new group, but also be respectful that there will be folks there that have done this multiple times. They're like, oh, here we go again, another downtown group, because that's happened before. And so let's be respectful of that in some regards it's a restart, not just a fresh kickoff. And also recognize that those work products that have already come out of some of those groups are going to be in scope for review. So if something's been done, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's take advantage of what's already been done and let's just have the conversation. Okay, now here's where we are. How do we move the ball down the field further? So I would say that is number one. And then number two, I know Dan is working on getting some quotes for a planner to provide specific guidance in this process. And that'll be one of the first outcomes, or one of the first items, is to align ourselves with a planner to guide through the process. And that will be kind of further discussed as part of the kickoff. But just know that that's coming up around the corner. That we want this to be a facilitated, guided process where it's not just us, floundering and, trying to put together a plan. Let's hire somebody who's done this in the past and use that expertise.
I do have a question. Will Washington County with Highway 61 be involved with the speed of traffic in this conversation?
Washington County's been invited,
Washington.
yes.
Anybody we need everybody.
Yeah, I think Washington County with 61 will have to be, if whatever comes of that particular topic, which is a topic, they'll have to be involved. It's the Department of Transportation, so Public Works. So if there's a barrier identified or there's an issue identified, they'll have to be part of that solution and should be there. We have invited Washington County, so we'll see what comes of that.
There's a lot of cogs in the wheel.
Well, and if we've invited, so Chris, who's here all the time, he'll be there, I'm sure, at least for a while, but, Public Works may not be there for Washington County right away, but once we identify maybe as 61, the roundabout, Broadway, there's issues there. That's when you have to bring them in, and maybe that's the implementation stage. How do we fix this, or what do we do to change it? What do we do to slow it down? Whatever the issue is, that they have to be a part of it. They just can't not be because they own the roads.
I think an ongoing theme for this is going to be what's the problem? So a part of kickoff is going to be walking through a high-level SWOT analysis and what are some of those weaknesses and what are some of those barriers that we need to overcome? And then the question to the group is going to be who needs to be in this room to help us remove this barrier? And then let's start recruiting, getting those folks involved at the right time. So I think that's going to be part of this group's challenge, is getting the right people at the table to remove some of those barriers. So. Other questions for next week? Thoughts? Certainly you all, does everyone have an invitation? Everyone got an invitation in their inbox? Certainly pass that on. If you've already given us names, that was part of the list that went out as part of that invitation. But certainly as you are interacting with folks, and then certainly, step one is Monday, but that's certainly just the starting spot. Happy to add folks as we go. And I suspect that group is going to expand and contract as we move through the agenda items. All right. Anything else related to downtown kickoff next week? No, Dan's not here. I know he's got a full meeting planned. He's done some nice work to get ready for it, so should be a good event. We don't have a Washington County update this evening. Nanette, anything else from the chamber that you would like to add?
Sure, just a couple of things, thank you. We have the Forest Lake Area Expo coming up on the 28th, and we are currently at over 65 exhibitors, which is great. We're excited about that. And last year we had over 1,000 attendees, so looks to be on track. Again, just a whole lot of a flurry of business activity in a short amount of time. So I do have promotional materials if there's anybody that has the place or the location to set things out or hang things up, that'd be great. And then the other piece that we're just starting to work on, Dan and I talked about it a little bit, but his presentation coming up on April 2nd. So I'm working with Sheila from Washington County to help promote that event to our businesses locally as well.
Perfect. Very good. Anything else this evening? Any other updates? All right, we will plan on seeing you all next Monday night at 5:30. And not hearing anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.